Kevin, there's no hiding from the fact that that is a disappointing outcome this afternoon, a 2-0 home defeat by Marine at the Sears Stadium. And despite opportunities, particularly in that first half, couldn't find the way through and ultimately have paid for that.
Yeah, it's a disappointing result. We can't, after the fantastic result against Macclesfield, to not back that up is especially disappointing. I think you look at the amount of possession we have in the game, the moments that we've got to convert. I think Marine have had one moment and fair play to them. They've stuck that in the back of the net. Play us on the counter there. You have to give them credit for that. They've had a speculative moment in the second half that's gone in, and you find yourself very much chasing the game. But when teams defend as deep as they do, and we've had again lots of possessions similar to the Leamington game. We knew through doing up homework that we felt it would be and have the complexion of something similar to what Leamington was. We've got to understand how to work harder and cleverer into the final third. Teams defending the edge of their box and really low block there, making it really difficult for us to find a way through. Loads of passes, not enough guile and understanding, and maybe not enough at certain times effort there to go and unlock doors and work hard for your space in your moment. There was no space to go behind them, so you either go through them or around them. And we haven't done on certain occasions, but what we haven't done is crystallise that with a goal. And when they go and take the one moment they have in the first half, it's a difficult place to find yourself for a lot of those young men, for all of us. Look, I'm not going to question the effort levels out there. Again, we see a lack of understanding and know-how. But if we take one of those chances, two of those chances, the whole complexion of the game changes, and you find yourself putting Marine probably further on the back foot. And great credit to them. They're doing great in the FA Trophy, doing great in the league, and they're a very stubborn side, really difficult to break down. And it's one thing we failed to do today.
Sure. I mean, you will have an idea of, if that is, how Marine tend to approach games, and nobody can blame them for the way they go about things. But is it somehow, could it also be a measure of perhaps the way your side have played so far this season, that you are going to find teams that are going to come here and play in that way because they know it's going to make it difficult for you? Yeah,
look, you have to keep evolving as a team, and exactly that. We've managed the ball and loads of passes, and it was a little, it was kind of a keep ball session there for a period in the first half, but they couldn't get the ball off us, and we were going side to side. But it's trying to bring, when you're moving the ball side to side, people making really sharp movements and being really incisive with the ball and finding space and opening. That's what you've got to do. The lads deserve credit for the way that we are able to move the ball, and probably a little bit off the back of that, you'd say teams are very much respecting us and understand what we can do. End up being fairly deep against you, and look, you have to give them credit. They've done that better than us, and as disappointed as I am with it, there are lots of positives out there, but we've got to realise when you're in tight games and situations like we find ourselves, scoring the opening goal and putting the opposition on the back foot where they've got to come out, and then you can craft a win. And look, we haven't done that well enough today. Marine have done. They've had a sporadic moment in the second half. It was a great strike. It's in off the post. Now all of a sudden at 2-0, and they've not had, I don't think, any real opportunities outside of that. But that's what they're good at, and that's what they can do, and you have to give them credit for us. I've set teams up in a similar way in the past, and again, credit to them. They're a tough side to beat, having a great season, and they deserve the result today.
Sure. It's been, I think, apparent for probably a number of weeks now, and with the number of games that are remaining, that every game is important. That inevitably, if you do have a setback, it puts a bit more of a need to get something out of future games if you're going to get something. But you have to be not expect, but there can be bumps in the road, can't there?
Yeah, I mean, it never. That's why we love the game, and it never runs as smooth as you want it to, and some results are seen as a shock. Where we've created some of those results this season where people didn't see us getting results and what have you. That can happen, and the one thing we should all understand is you take nothing for granted in football, and we certainly haven't taken anything for granted today. It's it's a tough game against a good side that you need to be right on the money, and you need to be taking your chances when they come along. And like I say, if we take some of those moments that are there, albeit are they half chance moments possibly. Some good areas we've got into where we haven't worked the target. The goalie's made several really good saves. I think we've had 2 or 3 off the line, haven't we? It's not for the want of trying, maybe for a little bit of lack of understanding, but they dig deep and make it hard for us and are hard to score against. And again, you have to, as difficult as it is, you have to give the opposition some credit and say well done to them.
Sure. I think it's probably inevitable given the fact that you've drawn a blank today, haven't scored, and you've been scoring plenty of goals up to now. That is going to make supporters ask about Matt Stenson again, isn't it? Was that just a decision just to rest him again today?
No, Matt's toe is still sore, and I spoke to him on Thursday. I said, look, we needed him to be available. Unfortunately, it's too painful, and he couldn't be available today. So, yeah, look, I don't want to start making excuses about the players. There's probably 5 players there that we're missing, I think, today that could come on and have an effect. We don't have so many attacking options to change the situation. And yeah, look, somebody like Matt in any side is key and is big to the whole situation. He's got 20 plus goals for us this season, and when you need to find a goal in tight situations, to have somebody either playing or off the bench, and options in and around it. Unfortunately, we haven't had that today. And I've said, on enough occasions to you and the players in there, we'll kind of be determined by what we've got on the bench, and players that can come in and have a real effect. And that's, no disrespect to the lads that have got off the bench today. They've got off and tried hard, but they're having to try hard in a perhaps a more difficult situation than they would like.
Sure. You've got a week now. There is no midweek fixture for the first time in a long time, so you've got, I don't know, I mean, you can look upon it, perhaps the rest might be beneficial, but at the same time, when you've perhaps had a result like you've had today, you maybe would welcome the opportunity to get back at it quickly. So, but it's all thoughts on Bedford next Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said to the boys, what's happened. The only way we can do anything about it and make it feel any better is to go and win next Saturday. That's what we need to do. I can't question the effort levels and for large parts the quality of what we are. Again, it's that bit of understanding in tight situations. How can you unlock the door and be really aggressive in certain moments and really ask and squeeze the life out of the opposition. And we haven't really done that well enough. But within me saying all that, we've had some really good moments, and we really should be scoring at least a couple of goals there today. Hasn't happened. I'm gutted. I'm disappointed because we've worked hard to get ourselves in the position we are, and clearly there's a chance and opportunity that we could make the playoffs, but we're making life hard for ourselves by not winning games at home and winning games like today. Look, it's tough. We have to do our best when we go into next Saturday to make sure that we are on the front foot and really carrying the fight to Bedford.
Sure, and potentially you might have some of those absent today back available again.
Yeah, hopefully so. Like I say, some good offensive players there. Matt, Ricky, Charlie, Jimmy. There's some really good offensive players there when you've got them at your disposal, you're able to seriously change what's happening out on the field and maybe give 1 or 2 a kick up the backside. It's disappointing, but like I say, we have to deal with it. We have to get over it and try to move forward next week.
Kevin, as always, grateful for your time.
Thank you.